So now that Lupa has been out for a couple of days, I've been able to fully form my opinions on her. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about Lupa's performance within the Tower of Adversity, her performance within Whimpering Wastes, and then finally I'm going to go past all of my points from my pros and cons video and say if I was right about them or not. Starting, of course, with her ability to perform within Tower. Tower is in my opinion the game mode that the Fusion duo tended to struggle with the most. Compared to other limited DPS characters, Chong-Li and Brant didn't really have as much damage output as, let's say, a Zani, a Phoebe, or Carlotta, or even a Shang Liao for that matter. Chong-Li's primary use case was still in the quick swap teams, and Brant, being primarily a Chong-Li support, also just kinda made him a quick swapper when it comes to the teams he was used in. Because when you use Chong-Li and Brant in quick swap, it was unironically better than just DPSing the Chong-Li. But now with Lupa in the mix, the Fusion family is a lot better now when it comes to pure DPS checks. Lupa not only provides her own personal damage, but she also makes the damage a lot more spread out throughout the team's rotation, giving a ton of buffs to Brant, while also giving a good amount of buffing to Chong-Li. And all of this while having a good amount of damage output herself, considering the fact that she is filling the role that Shorekeeper would normally fill. And we can all agree, Lupa does a lot more damage than Shorekeeper. I have heard people complain about the fact that they believe Lupa does not do enough damage, but I fully disagree with this notion. The notion that Lupa doesn't do enough damage is quite asinine, considering the fact that she allows you to ignore 15% of fusion resistance, has a powerful Ultra skill buff, has an 18% attack buff, as well as giving even more fusion damage through her Liberation, Set, and even her signature weapon. So asking Lupa to do a lot of damage is kind of insane, and I think the amount of damage that she is currently doing is more than enough considering just how much team utility this character has. So when it comes to Tower, I think Lupa is an absolutely incredible character. Although I will say that if you want her to be competitive with the top tier teams, you want to have all her teammates, as well as giving them all of the investment. But, well, same goes for Zani, same goes for Carlotta, same goes for Cardathea. Just asking for your teammates and for weapons should just be expected at this point. There was one thing with Lupa that I ended up having a little bit of frustration with. You see, Lupa makes you able to automatically dodge attacks whenever you're hit, thanks to her Liberation. However, for some reason this also applies for her own Forte skill, so if you get hit during her Forte skill, it gets interrupted by an automatic dodge, which kind of hurts your Concerto energy generation. And that is something that I did notice quite a bit against the Capitaneas in the current Tower of Adversity. So that is something you have to keep in mind, and you gotta make sure you time your skill so it doesn't get interrupted by the enemy hitting you. S1 completely solves this problem by making you immune to interruption, but I'm not gonna tell you to buy a sequence just to fix a quality of life issue. Lupa's performance with other Fusion characters has also been pretty good, so honestly, I don't have many complaints about Lupa in Tower. When it comes to Whimpering Wastes, it is a lot of the same story. Lupa just kind of gives so many buffs to the Fusion characters, however in this team, I believe that it was not at all necessary. Chong-Li and Brant was already one of the most powerful combinations within the entire Whimpering Waste game mode, and well, Lupa just added more on top of it. Not just in the form of damage output, which is incredibly powerful for Whimpering Wastes by the way, but also through the various amount of buffs that I've already mentioned. You see, Lupa doing very high personal damage, considering the fact that she's in the 3rd slot, is incredibly powerful because one of the best things you can do in Whimpering Wastes is have consistent damage output. Every second that you're not spending doing damage by setting up someone like Shorekeeper is a second where the current wave of enemies is not dying. So using a character that has high damage output like Lupa can be incredibly valuable within the Whimpering Wastes game mode. Especially since Chong-Li and Brant are already as powerful as they are within Whimpering Wastes. So honestly, Lupa took an already powerful team and made it even more powerful. Lupa has multiple wave wiping abilities, through her enhanced intro skill, her Liberation, as well as her Forte skill. So honestly, Lupa should not be messed with within Whimpering Wastes. One thing that I actually found out about Lupa, thanks to testing her here, is the fact that the additional attack she does, thanks to her Forte circuit, actually has grouping abilities, which is very powerful considering the character that gets to take advantage of it is Brant. And outside of his big anchor nuke, Brant doesn't really do much when it comes to AoE. So Lupa having such a powerful form of grouping makes it so Brant is able to put even more damage on groups of enemies that he normally wouldn't be able to. Although I have noticed some issues with Brant. You see, I already said that Lupa's forte skill is a pretty good Wave Viper. So whenever you try to intro skill into Brant, there's a very high chance he will just completely whiff the enemy after that, making an already clunky character even more clunky. But that's not Lupa's issue, that is entirely up to Brant. So overall, I think Lupa is an incredibly powerful character for Whimpering Wastes. She does have good AoE, she has wave wipes, she has a good amount of personal damage, and strong teammates for the game mode. If I do have to give one gripe, it's that her enhanced heavy attack can sometimes ungroup enemies, which, you know, pretty unfortunate considering your literal next attack is a supposed wave wipe. So yes, there are some scenarios in which Lupa's forte skill just isn't going to hit everyone. But after that, you're swapping right into Brant and using his Liberation, meaning that Lupa groups the enemies again for you. So honestly, while it is a negative, I can't really chalk it up to being much more than just a nitpick. Now that I've discussed Lupa's performance in both game modes, it's time for me to talk about the points I made in my pros and cons video to see if I was right or not. First of all being the fact that I believe Lupa's team would be the best team for all of Whimpering Wastes. And honestly, I do believe this is true, but I don't think it's as dominating as I made it out to be. Camellia and GN are still incredible forces to be reckoned with, although I do think that the Triple Fusion team is still the best team in all of Whimpering Wastes. So I will give myself the positive here, but not as big of a positive as I made it out to be. Then the second thing was that I said that Lupa would have a high damage output, which did end up being the case. Her enhanced intro skill and her liberation are absolute nuclear bombs, and they are the literal first things that Lupa does. So the second that she gets on field, she's already hitting the enemy with 2 nukes. So yeah, I believe I was right in saying Lupa would have high personal damage. Obviously, it's not as high as that of Brant or Chong-Li, which makes sense because she's a bit more of a supportive character, but her damage output is not to be messed with. Then I also said that Lupa would be good for all fusion characters, which I do still stand by. She isn't straight up locked into the Triple Fusion team, being a good support for both Encore, as well as playing Chong-Li and Brant without the other fusion character. You can even run Mortefi in her teams to make sure you're running Triple Fusion for extra buffing. So yeah, I'll give myself this and say that Lupa is indeed great for all fusion characters. Then I also mentioned that Lupa would be good in Quickswap. I do feel I oversold her a bit here, because in Quickswap, there's not really that many things you can do after you've done the standard Lupa things, aka using her Liberation, her intro, as well as her forte skill. I don't feel there's much else to do after that, but still, it is strong enough to where I'm willing to say that I do think this is a positive, although again, I feel I oversold it a little bit. Then I also mentioned the free dodges, which I don't really think they're that big of a deal, but they are in the kit and they can be pretty useful, especially for Brant and Chong-Li, because they're pretty easy to interrupt. So yeah, guess I was right here, although I never really believed it was that big of a deal. Then for the negatives, I said that Lupa was kinda just locked to fusion teams, which I will give a little bit of a correction on that, because she can be pretty good with other Quickswap characters, but like I said earlier, I don't think she's too crazy in Quickswap. So, I don't know if I would call her fusion locked, but she definitely prefers fusion characters. But let's be honest, from just reading her kit, anyone could have guessed that. And then finally, I said that Lupa as a main DPS would not be that good, which is an insane nitpick because she's more of a supportive character, but whatever. She is indeed not that good as a main DPS. Her basic attack's damage is pretty underwhelming, and it's going to take actual years to get a second forte skill within one rotation. So yeah, as a main DPS, she is not it, if you're trying to main DPS her, get her to S6. But those are just my thoughts on Lupa. Let me know what you think of her in the comments below, and while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, be sure to ask me in my Discord, which is linked in the description. I'm pretty active in there, so there's a pretty good chance I'll respond. If you just want to see more of me, be sure to check out my second channel, in which I primarily talk about punishing Grey Raven, but I kinda just make videos about whatever I feel like. But that'll be it from me. Peace.